Hello, dear ones, it's Alice. I am of the stars. There was another big battle with the Argentine ants today, and I found out some more things about their society. First off, I stopped the invasion in the bathroom by shutting off the sacred geometry points mentioned in a prior post with Loctite, as mentioned in that post. But before that, there were some incidents that I should explain, and after that as well. They found out that by asking their children, their babies that are not yet workers, by asking their children to speak sharply and repetitively to me, they could cause a pain in my head, migraine with a sinus problem. And that was happening today. I found out when I left the house that it got a little better, and then it started up again. And now it's much better because they're retreating. That's another story. Another thing I found out is that last night there was a big mating ritual, and that the queen had chosen one drone to be her king. And she said that was because there were so many, she had to pick one. And she said that the minute that one dies, that another drone would have a chance. And I said, is it likely he will die? And she said no, but she wanted to give them hope. So there was, in this particular instance, one Argentine ant queen and one king. And last night there was a mating ritual, apparently, that causes the queen to have many, many eggs, maybe 1,000, they say. They say they're 1,000 strong right now. And I asked if there were 1,000 strong, and the drone, who's the king, said, no, but they say it like that. During the mating ritual, it came out later that the king feels that all the worker ants are his wives. And I said, why is that? He said, because when something sexual is going on, then they all feel sexual too. And I'm assuming that may be true of the drones that are unable to mate with the queen because she selected someone else to be the king. Okay, so after sealing up the joints with Loctite just now, as soon as I did that work in the bathroom, the pain in my head started to go away from the sinus problem. Apparently, the sound of the HVAC, the air conditioner, joined with the sound of the babies making a very shrill voice and pretending to be members of my family. It's really very eerie what they do psychologically. Somehow affects the energy inside my head and causes this very deep migraine feeling. It's very weird. They've apparently been experimenting with sound, and I think that can be probably countered using brain wave tapes for therapy to block out that sound, that repetitive, real shrieking sound of the babies. Now, something else I should tell you, and pretended to be the queen speaking to the king, and I spoke in a very, very low voice without much emotion. They were discussing their options, and every time they came up with a place to dig for entry into my bathroom, I would put Loctite there, and that was very discouraging to them, and they became very upset. The queen went crazy, and she just suggested things that didn't make any sense at all. And some of the ants came to groom her so that she would feel okay again, and then she calmed down. So as that was going on, I made that mental suggestion, maybe you should leave here now. And the king heard it and decided that that was a good idea. So this is the form of, if we say, may I sound like the queen, very quietly, and then we make the suggestion that they should leave the home, there's a chance that they will do that. Right now, they've decided to go off. And when they did, the king drone decided to bite off the antennas of the queen, called that scalping her. And I asked why, and he said so he couldn't stand to hear her voice. I asked her how long she could live in this condition. She said 5 days. He said, don't touch her genitals because she might make more babies and they might survive to establish a colony. So in that debilitated state, untended and all alone and deserted, the queen might produce babies that would then start a new colony, he hoped. I asked the queen if there was a chance she could grow smaller and then go with them to this new place or back to the old place where they were. The queen said she could not get smaller. She could expand, but she could not get smaller, that they've tried to make it that she could get smaller, but they were unsuccessful in that. So then I heard the king drone made contact with the colony next door in my neighbor's house and asked if they could switch roles. And this very warlike colony king over there said that he would try. And then they exchanged tactical information. The king drone from over here said that they had food in containers, but they were ant-proof. And the king drone from over there said, we will go from cabinet to cabinet and eat her food. And the king drone from here said, but she has no food in her cabinets. And the king drone from over there then stopped for a minute and then said, well, in that case, we will stay right where we are. You must go someplace else. So now you know how intelligent they are, extremely intelligent, and they're capable of causing very severe sinus headaches with a sound that needs to be counteracted with sound therapy, such as the languages of light and sound, described in my.com, Awakening with Planet Earth. And I'm happy to say another battle has been won almost exactly 1 month to the day after the first great battle of the kitchen. The king drone later went out. They moved very fast and they moved out towards the front yard. They were mentioning a passage from a bathroom drain that goes out through the yard. And the king drone said that it wasn't safe to take that passage because there were ants there. I'm assuming black outdoor ants and not Argentine ants, which are brown, and cockroaches there. So it must be that the black ants and the cockroaches are at war with the Argentine ants. I asked him what would happen if he tried to make sexual advances towards the queen at a time when eggs were not needed for the colony. He said she would make him go away. I said, how? He said she would get her workers, I guess the ones that tend her, to tell them they would tear their antennas off if they tried. And I said, but would they do that? And he said, no, but that frightened them away because without their antennas, they could not direct the work that the worker ants were doing. So a lot depends on those antennas. And the question is, how can they be blocked by human beings? Speaking most likely of the birds, which he considers to be people, as do I, the drone said that some people blocked their signals. I said, how? And he said, by sending happy sounds. He says, we like sad sounds, not happy sounds. I said, why? He said, because we eat their children, meaning the baby birds. So apparently the happy sounds that the birds make drive the Argentine ants away. Isn't that interesting? And if we could make happy sounds in our home, either through playing music or through singing, then maybe that would deter them from our homes as well. One of the interesting things that the queen ant said here is that the eggs of the ants in the colonies that are sealed off by me can live for a long time. And I tried to get it exactly how long. Apparently it's years. that the eggs can live. She won't say how long. I said, well, if the colony breaks back in, would they eat those eggs and make new eggs, or would they let those eggs hatch? She said, let them hatch. I said, why? She said, why go to the extra effort? So they're conserving energy by letting the eggs that were there before hatch. This is interesting because quite likely those eggs would be from a different colony. But as you may know, there's colony cooperation amongst the Argentine ants all over California, and they must not make a distinction between other colonies' eggs and their own eggs. They must consider those eggs as if they were their own. It's kind of like human civilization in that regard, because if we people in the United States see that children are dying in a foreign country because of a natural catastrophe, we would send the Red Cross and other groups to try to help out and save those children, and the grown-ups too. And apparently the ants do the same thing, which is kind of scary because it's a war for possession of Earth. Never forget, it's them or us as far as our homes are concerned. The worker ants mentioned finding good things to eat on these plants here in the windowsill. I said, what? They said small hairy things. And another ant said, but we also found spider mites there. And apparently they're enemies of spider mites. I said, were the things that you found baby spider mites? They said, no. I said, did they have wings? They said they had wings, but they couldn't fly. There were small balls of fluff. Apparently they were tasty to the ants. So now we know that spider mites are enemies of ants, and that these small balls of fluff, which the worker ants said they could not milk, are edible to the ants. That's interesting. I think I know what they're talking about, the tiny balls of fluff. I've seen them around here and there, and perhaps you have too. I don't see anything right now. Maybe they ate them all. Also, the queen ant mentioned that they might, as an alternative to getting food from inside my home, grow mushrooms in the crawl space or in between the molding inside my house. But the king ant said they could not support many babies by growing mushrooms. Lucky for me, because the idea of mushrooms growing in my crawl space just doesn't appeal very much. There's already enough fungi around, don't you think? And they're more or less parasitic on human beings and might not be a very good vibe to have around a home, I feel. I spoke to the queen ant just now, the one that had her antennas cut off. I asked her what she was doing now. She said she would just sleep until she died. I said, was there any hope that she could live? And she said, no, there's not. I tell you, those queen ants, they're too big. They exercise a lot of power, but the problem is they meet these terrible ends if the colony does not work out right. I don't know how long they live. She says, I might just live a week. I don't think they want to become queens. I think they're selected and forced to become queens. I don't know how that works. I would not want to become a queen either. I would become a refugee from the colony instead of becoming a queen. Wouldn't you? You know, the sound of the ants has almost disappeared now. It's the worker ants and the king ant are out there in the front yard. They've gone away very fast from the house. And I can barely hear the queen. Her voice is very muffled now that her antennae have been broken off. Just in parting, I asked the king ant one very important question. I said, perhaps The proton fall, the dense proton fall that I mentioned in my last post, had nothing to do with the ant invasion that happened today. Maybe it was the ant invasion that I was sensing last night and had nothing to do with dense proton fall. And the king drone said, we chose that time for the invasion because the homeowner would be weaker then. So somehow, I don't know how they know about the effect of dense proton fall. That can't be. Or they sense a time when the immune system of the homeowner is lower, and they pick that time, or perhaps a time when they're feeling very down in the dumps, and they pick that time to stage an invasion. This is a psychological warfare issue. It represents a very advanced insect society. I asked the king drone at the time, doesn't the dense proton fall affect the ants? And he said, we have this skeleton, the thick skeleton that protects us from the proton fall. That's unlike the bacteria, the fungi, and the human beings and other mammals. I'm not sure about the birds. So we'll find out more later, maybe. We'll just have to wait and see. It's a cliffhanger for sure. Oh yeah, part of their psychological warfare against homeowners that they're trying to invade is that they pretend to be family members of the homeowner and behaving very, very badly. Or they pretend to be authority figures such as army generals or CIA agents or, some very bad people that are right there directing all one's activities, such as, for instance, making commands that a person should not leave the home. Well, home is where the trouble is when they're trying to invade through and use psychological warfare, is it not? So the thing is to get outside and to get away from them for a little bit and regain one's equilibrium. So if you hear a command that you have to stay inside the home, go and get out as soon as possible and just read a good book or have a good time or take a nice walk for a while. Then come back and deal with the physical situation, the reality of whether the ants have gotten into your living space or not. This experience leads me to think that people presenting for psychological or psychiatric analysis who are living on the streets may be encountering a lot of insects, for example, ants, and that this might be an issue for them. The psychological warfare of the ants might be an issue for them. And it might also be true in developing countries that people have constant battles with ants. For instance, I was looking at a YouTube video about how people, perhaps in India, were making food on the porch outside their home. And I asked about that long distance telepathically, and the people there said that they kept all their food outside and that they only cooked outside and ate outside so that there was no food whatsoever inside their home. And that was to prevent insect invasions inside their house. And I wonder if it will come down to that for us as well, here in the United States eventually. I don't know. I think it's something to look into, is how people in developing nations deal with the insect problem. And then that could be applied to the homeless population in Los Angeles, for instance, because it could be driving them crazy temporarily. They would quickly recover if they could get away from whatever insect it is that's waging the warfare, don't you know? So if they present with craziness at a facility, I think you should take into consideration whether or not they've been very close to vermin for a while and all kinds of insects. That may have something to do with it. I know it's something that you've never considered, but take it from the prophet. It's an undiscovered possibility. God bless you all, keep you safe, and be with you through all your days. In love, light, and joy. This is Alice B. Clagett. I am of the stars, and so are you. come and visit me at my .com, awakeningwithplanetearth.com.